What is up, everyone? Welcome back. So, we are continuing with our walkthrough of the FreeCodeCamp curriculum. And in this lesson in particular, we are going to be looking at the basic data structures parts of the curriculum. Okay, so let's get started. So, for the first lesson, we are going to see how to use an array to store a collection of data. So you may be familiar with what arrays are. Arrays in JavaScript are used to store data, like the explanation says. And the way you write an array is like this. You write the name of the array, bring the assignment operator, and then you use the square brackets. So inside the square bracket, you add the element of the array. Now these elements can be anything. They can be a string, they can be a number, they can even be arrays themselves, and they can be a boolean or undefined. Alright, they can be any of the 7 data types in JavaScript. So for example, here is a very complex array. So this is what we call a one-dimensional array. So it's just an array that contains things. And this is a multi-dimensional array because it's an array that contains arrays in it. So for example, as you can see, we have this array. Inside it is also other arrays. All right. So we have defined a variable called your array. Complete the statement by assigning an array of at least 5 elements in length to your array variable. Your array should contain at least one string, one number, and a boolean. Okay, so let's get started. So let your array equal to, now do this, and the first now say is Kobe, like so. Don't forget to bring your comma after every element in the array. So the second one should be a number, so I'll say 24. Third item, I'll say 8. Next item, I'll just bring another array and say LA Lakers. That's the team that Kobe Bryant played for. And I'll also bring a last one. I'll just say Mamba Mentality. Okay, so that's it. That's our array that we've created, and it has 5 elements. Okay, so we are told that it should contain at least one boolean. So let me add one boolean, true, like so. Okay. Now let's see how we can access an array's content using the bracket notation. So one thing you have to know about arrays is that they use zero-based indexing. Okay, so if you are counting the elements in an array, you don't start counting from 1, 2, and 3. You start counting from 0. So the first item in the array has an index of 0. So if you want to access this first item, you use 0. Okay, so let's see the example here. You are told to complete this challenge and set the second position, which has an index of 1 in my array, to anything you want besides the letter B. Okay, so for example, here we have this my array which contains these letters. So like I was saying earlier, this first item will have an index of 0. This second item will have an index of 1. This will have an index of 2, and so on. So if you want to access this second item, you use 1. You don't use 2. So if we want to change it, the way we are going to do it is to say my array, and then bring the bracket notation. So you bring the square brackets like so. Then inside it, we write the index of the item in the array we want to change or set. So in this case, we'll say 1 because we want to set the second item. and I'll say equal to, let's set it to something else. So I'll just say something else. So I'm setting it to the string something else. So as you can see below here, instead of A, the value of the second item is now something else. So let's do a console log before the change and after the change. So I'll do a console log of my array. And as you can see, before the change, we have A, B, C, and D. But after the change, we have A, something else, C, and D. All right, so that's how you can access an element in an array and also how you can change it as well. Let's move on. Okay, so next up, let's see how you can add an element into an array using push or unshift. So this array.push method, what it does is that it will add elements to the end of an array, and the unshift element will have the unshift method, will add elements to the start of the array. So that's the difference between the two. So here we have defined a function mixed numbers, which we are passing an array as an argument, and want to modify the function by using the push and unshift method to add 1, 2, 3 to the beginning. So let's do that. So if you want to add to the beginning, you use unshift. So write the name of the array, which we are receiving as an argument here. So r.unshift, bring your curly braces, and then add whatever you want to add. So in this case, we want to add Roman numerals I, the number 2, and the string 3. So now as you can see, again, let me console log. I'll do a console log of the array before we added. So as you can see now, we have just this right here. But when you use the unshift, we've been able to add this 1, 2, 3 before it. So we added this element at the beginning of the array. Now if we use .push, we'll be able to add elements at the end of the array. So let's add the element 7, VIII, which is 8, and then 9. Now as you can see, we've added 7, not 1. We've added 7, 8, and 9. All right. Okay, so next up, we want to see how we can remove items from an array. So in the previous lesson, we looked at how to add items. Now let's see how we can change or remove items from an array. So the way we do that is to use the pop method. So with pop, we can use it to remove elements from the end of the array. So pop is like the opposite of the push method we learned previously. And then shift is used to move elements from the beginning of the array. Okay, so with the pop, we say we have defined a function pop shift, which takes in an array as an argument and returns a new array. So we want to modify the function using pop and shift to remove the first and last element of the array. Okay, so here I'm going to do a console log of R. I'm going to copy this, and then after we are done, I'll do another console log so that we see the changes. So now let's do pop equal to r.shift, like so. And as you can see, we've already removed the first element, which is challenge. Okay, now let's see how we can use the shift. So this should be pop. let's see how we can use the shift method as well. And instead of removing the elements at the beginning, it's going to remove the elements at the end. So at the end of the day, we are left with the two elements that were in the middle, which is this two strings here. So that's what we are using now. All right. So yeah, that should be it. I'm going to go ahead and remove the console log statement, and then I'll run the test. Okay. Now let's look at another method that is called the splice method. So the pop and shift method that we looked at earlier, we use the pop to remove elements at the end of the array, and then we use the shift method to remove elements at the beginning of the array. So how about if we wanted to remove elements somewhere in the middle of the array? That's where the splice method comes in. Okay, so the splice method can take up to 3 parameters, but in this lesson we are going to learn about when it takes 2 parameters, and then in the next lesson we are going to talk about the third parameter. Okay, so the way the splice works is that when you give it 2 parameters, the first parameter is the index of where you want to begin removing. Okay, so for example, for this array here, we have today was not a great day. So if you say array.splice and give it the first element of 2, it's going to start from the third element. Mind you, arrays are 0-based index, so 2 is the third element. So you're going to start from here, 0, 1, 2. So you're going to start removing from here, and then this 2 here is the number of elements that you want to remove. So in this case, it's going to start from here and remove 1, 2. Okay, so it's going to remove these 2 elements, and at the end of the day, we'll be left with today was great. So let's actually copy it here and see it in action. So I'm going to comment out this console log. I'm going to paste it here. Now, what I'll do is I'll do a console log of array. And as you can see, we have today was not a great day. Okay, now let me copy this and put it below it. Okay, so as you can see, we have before the splice method, we have today was not a great day. But after the splice method, we have today was great, which means that these 2 elements, not and so, has been removed. And the reason why they have been removed because the array.splice method was given a first argument of 2, which will come here and count 0, 1, 2, which is the third element. And then the second argument of 2 removes 2 elements, so it will start counting 1, 2. So at the end of the day, it will remove these 2 elements. That's why we are left with today was great. Okay, so let me clean this up. Let me uncomment this, and then let's see the challenge. So we initialize an array R, use splice to remove elements from R so that it only contains this element that sum up to the value of 10. So we have some numbers here and want to remove some of them so that the ones that will be left will only sum up to 10. So let's see. Okay, I think I have an idea. So yeah, so you see we have this 5 here. So 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 1, right? Sorry, 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. Now when we add this 8 to 2, what will we get? 10. So we can achieve that, or we can solve this exercise by removing these elements. Okay, all right, so now let's use the array.splice. So I'm going to say r.splice, and then the first argument, I'm going to give the splice method. Because I want to remove starting from here, I'll say 0, 1. So 4 has an index of 1. So I'll say 1. Bring my comma. And then I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the number of items I want to remove. 4. Now, before that, if you just give it one argument like so, you see we are left with 2. What means is that if you give it one argument, it will remove everything from here all the way to the end. Okay, but that's not what we want. What we want is we want to remove 1, 2, 3, 4 items. So we'll say 4. Okay, and then we are done. So yeah, that's it. As you can see, we have 2, 5, 2, 1. So 2 plus 5 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So that's it. All right, now let's see how we can add items to an array using splice. So previously we learned how to take out an item. But what if we want to take out an item and add something to it? So in that case, we use the third argument. We provide a third argument to the array. To the array.splice method. Okay, so we have defined a function HTML color names, which takes an array of HTML colors as an argument, and we want to modify the function using splice to remove the first 2 elements of the array and add dark salmon and blanche almond. So we'll say R, that's the name of the array.splice. Now I want to remove the first 2 items. So we'll start from index of 0, which is the first item, and want to remove 2 of them. So we'll say 2. Okay, and then the third or the other element you're going to add is the things we want to add to it. So you see here, after removing the first 2 elements, these 2 are gone. Darkened golden red and white smoke is gone. So I'm going to add like so. Dark salmon. And I'm also going to add blanched almond. I hope I got the spelling right. All right, as you can see now, we've removed this dark golden rod and white smoke, and we've added dark salmon and blanched almond using array.splice method. Okay. All right, next up, let's see another method called slice. Okay, so there's slice without a P. So there's slice. Now, using slice, instead of modifying the array, so the previous ones that we were doing where we're using splice actually modifies the array on which it is applied, but slice does not do that. Slice returns a different array. So let's see an example here. Okay, so let me copy this and I'm going to comment out this. Okay, now let me bring it here. And as you can see, we have weather conditions, rain, snow, sleet, hail, and clear. And we have today's weather. So let's console.log weather conditions. And let's also console.log today's weather. Okay, so as you can see, we added weather conditions.slice 1 and then 3. So what this do is that this 1 will say that I want to start from here. Okay, so there's 1. There's the array item with index of 1. So I want to start removing from here and then end at 3. This is 3. So it means this is not as included in the items that will be removed. So you remove this and then anything that comes before the third element, remove it. That's why you see snow and sleet here. Now also note that when we console log weather condition is still intact. It has not been affected. Okay, but assuming if I was to use splice here, now you see splice affect weather condition, so it changes weather condition, but slice does not do that. That's the difference you need to note. Okay, now let's work on the challenge. So in the challenge, we have some weather forecast elements, and we are told to apply the array slice method so that we'll be left with only warm and sunny. Okay, so as you can see, we have just warm and sunny. So warm and sunny, warm is the array with item or index of 2, so 0, 1, 2, and then sunny is 3. So we have to do this array dot slice, and then we'll say 2 because 0, 1, 2, and then we'll say 4 because we want to remove everything that comes before 4. So we start from 2 and remove everything that comes before 4. So we say 4, like so. Now what are we left with? We are left with warm and sunny, just as we wanted. All right. Okay, now let's talk about something called the spread operator. So with the spread operator, we can be able to copy the elements in an array. Okay, so for example, let's see this. So over here, I'll console.log that array. And as you can see, this array have these elements, and by using the spread operator, which is these 3 dots here, okay, and writing the name of the array, we are able to copy all these elements into here and assign it to that array. That's why when I console log that array, you see we have the same element, true, true, undefined, false, null, which we have here, true, true, undefined, false, null. Okay, now let's head to the challenge. So we have defined copy machine, which takes R, an array, and num as argument. The function is supposed to return a new array made up of num copies of R. We have done most of the work for you, but it doesn't work quite right yet. Modify the function using the spread syntax so that it works correctly. Hence, another method we have already covered might come in handy here. Okay, now what do we have here? We have a copy machine function. It is receiving an array and a number. Okay, so we have a while loop here. Okay, and all we're going to do inside the loop is that, okay, so what do we want to do? So we want to do new r.push, then let's push r into it. Okay, so let's see, console.log, yeah. Oh, sorry, so we are supposed to use the spread operator. Okay, so yeah, so we want to push this array into this new r here, and we're going to say new r dot push. Remember, the push method adds element to the end of an array, and we are going to say dot 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 r, the r we are receiving here. Okay, now this should work. Okay, yeah. Okay, now let's see how we can combine arrays with a spread operator. Okay, so here, for example, I'm going to copy this and let's console log it here. So I'm going to do a console log of that array. And what do you have? You see, we have basil, cilantro, and then this array. So this right here will copy all the items of this array. That's why, as you can see, we have sage, rosemary, parsley, and thyme. Okay, and then finally we have coriander. So using the spread operator, we can combine arrays easily. So let's see an example here. Over here, we have a function spread out that returns a variable sentence, and want to modify the function using the spread operator so that it returns the array with the strings learning to code is fun. Okay, so we'll say let sentence equal to one sentence to be an array. So we'll say learning. Now mind you, fragment is equal to code, so we can copy these to code here simply by saying dot fragment. Okay, and as you can see from the output, we have learning to code. Now let's add the toString is fun. All right, now that's it. We have learning to code is fun. That's the output we are looking for. Okay, next up, let's see how we can check for the presence of an element in an array. So sometimes you may have an array like this and want to check if a certain element is in it or not. So to do that, we use something called indexOf. So in this challenge, we are supposed to modify the function using indexOf so that it returns true if the passed element exists on the array and false if it does not. So we're just going to say if r.indexOf, then we'll bring the bracket lm. Okay, now one thing you have to note about the indexOf is that if, let me copy this so that we see an example. Okay, just a moment. I want to console log these so that you see what is happening with the indexOf. Yeah, so console.log. Okay, now when you check for index of dates in our fruit array, we don't have date in here, as you can see, so it returns -1. Okay, I'll explain that in a moment. And when you check of index of oranges, we have orange, which has an index of 0, 1, 2, so it returns 2, which is the index of oranges. And then pears also have 0, 1, an index of 1, so it returns 1. Now this returns dates. Index of date is -1 because date is not present. So when you check for the index of an element and that element is not present in an array, what happens is that the indexOf method will return -1. Okay, so back to our quick check function. So we want to check whether elem is in the array or not, and we will say that if elem or index of elem is equal to -1, then we know that it is not present. So we'll say false. We'll say return false. Else, if that's not the case, then we know that elem is present. So we say return true, like so. Okay, so still going. Let's keep going. All right, now I want to learn how to iterate through an array's items using for loops. Okay, so let me reset this lesson, sorry. Okay, now we can use the for loops to loop through the items in an array. Okay, and let's see an example here. So we have defined a function here called filtered array, which takes r, and then which takes r is a nested array. Okay, and then it takes elem as argument. So as you can see, this filtered array takes in r. So there is an array, and within that array we have other arrays. Okay, so what we are supposed to do here is to modify the function using a for loop. Okay, and to return a filtered version of the array such that any nested array within R containing the elem will be removed. Okay, so for example here the elem we are given is 3, and we want to create or modify the function such that any element that contains 3 will be removed. So for example, this will be removed, this also will be removed because it contains 3, this as well, and this as well. So at the end of the day, we'll be left with an empty array. That's interesting. Okay, but let's see. So let's bring our for loop, and we'll say let I equal to 0, I is less than r dot length, because that's the array we are working with, r, and we'll say I plus plus. Okay, so now what we want to check is if, remember we just learned indexOf, so we want to check if ri, which is the current array we are looking at in the loop, has elem. So if ri index of elem is equal to -1. So if it's equal to -1, it means elem is not present in the current array. So if that is the case, all we are going to do is we are going to push that particular element into this new array here. So I'll say new array dot push, new array dot push. Okay, and now after doing that, we are returning new array. So if there is any array that do not contain the elements, in this case that do not contain 3, to be pushed. But here we have an empty array because all the arrays contain 3. Now assuming I should remove this 3 from here, see what happens. You see, this array 99 is pushed into the new array we are returning. All right, so let me make it as it was. Okay, now let's see how we can create multi-dimensional arrays. So arrays can be multi-dimensional, so you can have arrays within arrays. So you see we have an example here. This giant thing is an array. Inside it we have an array. Here we have an array which itself contains 2 arrays. Here also we have an array which contains an array that has other arrays. So it's an array nested within other arrays within other arrays, and this can get very complex. So we'll look at how to use objects instead when we have to do something like this. But then this is still technically correct in JavaScript, and as you can see, you can access the elements. Okay, so with this challenge, we have my nested array here, and we want to access, or we want to create or edit it such that it has 5 levels of depth. Okay, so you have arrays within arrays within arrays. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come here and do this, and then I'll add this. So this is, we are told this is level 1. Okay, now this is going to be level 2, this is going to be level 3. Okay, and it's going to be level 4, it's going to be level 5. So in level 5 I'll write deepest, because we are told to include the string deepest in level 5. Okay, now let me run the test to check something. Yeah, so this test passes. My nested array should contain exactly one occurrence of the deepest string on an array nested 5 levels deep. Okay, now I'm going to modify this also. So this is level 1. This is going to be level 2. Let's have level 3 and then level 4. So I'm going to say deeper. Okay, now let's do same for level 3. Level 2, I'm going to say deep. Okay, so now we've created an array that has multiple depths. Okay, yeah. Okay, now let's learn about JavaScript objects. And JavaScript objects essentially are key pair values. So to create an object, you write the name of the object, bring your equal to or assignment operator, bring the curly braces, and then inside the curly braces, you define key pair values. So for example, player here is a key, and the value of player is this string right here. We also have another key fighting style. The value is this right here. Okay, so these are what we call key pair values. And these values can be numbers, strings, arrays, object. They can be anything. Okay, so now to access a value or an item in the object, you can use this dot notation. So for example, you can say taking.origin equals South Korea, and this will add a new key of origin with a value of South Korea. Okay, you can use the dot notation or you can use the bracket notation. So I'll encourage you to read this note so that you get a better understanding. All right, now let's focus on the challenge. So the challenge says that a food object has been created with 3 entries. Using a syntax of your choice, that is whether the dot notation or the bracket notation, we want to add more entries to it. So let's add another entry. We'll say banana. So we'll say foods dot bananas is equal to 13. Okay, and as you can see, we've added 13 to bananas. Okay, you can also say foods dot grapes is equal to 35, and as you can see, that also adds grapes to it. Now let's do one with the bracket notation. So we'll say fruits, bring our bracket notation, and then we'll say strawberries, and we're going to add 27, which is the value. And as you can see here, we've added strawberries, which has a value of 27. All right. Next up, let's see how we can modify an object nested within an object. Okay, so the way you do that is to get to that object. So first here, you say nested object. So nested object dot data. Okay, because we want to come here. So dot data, which is itself an object, and we say dot online status. Okay, dot online status, which is itself an object, and then we say dot busy. So dot busy. So this is the value we want, and then at the end of the day, we want to change it to 10. So let's see an example here. Here we have an object user activity which includes another object, data, and we want to set the value of online key, this online key, from 42 to 45. So currently you see that the value of online key which we are console logging here is 42. So let's set it so that it becomes 45. So we'll say user activity, which is the name of the object, this one here, and then we'll come inside this and we'll say dot data. That's where we want to come. Then inside dot data, we'll say dot online. Okay, dot online, and then we assign a new value to it. So we say equal to 45. Now, as you see, the value of the online key changes to 45. All right. Now, let's see how we can access property names using the bracket notation. Okay, so we can use either the dot notation or the bracket notation, and that works. So for example, here we have selected food, get current food, scanned items, and we can use the scanned item here to get the key of selected foods in the foods object. So let's see an example. We have a food object here, and we are told to return the current value of the scanned item. Okay, so in this example, the scanned item is apples. So we want to return the value of apples, which is 25. So we'll say return foods, bring your square notation, and then we'll say scanned item. And as you can see, we are returning 25. Okay, so you can access the property of a key using bracket notation as well. All right, now let's see how to use the delete keyword to remove properties from an object. So that's pretty straightforward. You just do delete, and then you access the item that you want to delete. So here, let's do delete. Want to delete foods.oranges, delete foods.plums. As you can see, oranges and plums are deleted. Now let's also go ahead and delete strawberries. Now you can also use the bracket notation here as well. So I'm going to use the bracket notation for strawberries. And as you can see, we no longer have oranges, plums, and strawberries in our food array. All right. Okay. Now let's check if an object has a property. And the way you do that is to use something called hasOwnProperty. So that's a method you can apply on the object, or you can also use something called the in keyword. Okay, so Alan in users, for example. So finish the writing of the function so that it returns true if the object passed to it contains all 4 names. Okay, so I'll say if we're going to say, let's use the in Alan in user object, then I'll say return true. Okay, now you see it returns true because we have Alan in the user object. Okay, but we want you to return true if it has all of these. So I'm also going to say, let me copy this because I'm going to be repeating it. So I'm going to say, and next name is not Jeff. And I will say, and what's the next name? Sarah. And I'll bring another and the last name, which is Ryan. Okay, so if Alan is in the object, and Jeff is in the object, and Sarah is in the object, and Ryan is also in the object, then return true. Okay, so if one of them is not there, assuming I comment this out, then it returns undefined. Okay, all right, so that's it. Okay, so this does not pass the test. Okay, let's see why this is happening. So we are saying if okay, so if Alan is in user object, return true. So this returns true, right? And okay, let me see. Yeah, so one moment, I'm trying to figure out why this is not working. Okay. All right, so we are saying if Alan in objects. Now let's see the spellings. So Alan, Jeff, Sarah, and then Ryan. Oh, so we are returning true, but we are not returning the false. Okay, so I see where the issue is. So return false. All right, so this should work. All right, yeah. Okay. Next up, let's see how we can iterate through the keys of an object using something called a for in. Okay, so I'm going to reset this lesson. Okay, all right, now let's continue. So we have defined the function count_line which accepts one argument, all users. So this count_line accepts all users. Use for in statement inside this function to loop through all users and return the number of users whose online property is set to true. So for example, we have these users and want to look through them and see who are online. So online here is false, online here is true. So we want to see the number of users who are online. So the way we're going to do that is to say, first of all, let's define a variable total users online. Okay, and let's set it to 0. And then we are told to use the for in. Okay, so we're going to say for. Now we'll say const user in. Okay, user in all users. Okay, now let me console.log something to help you understand. Let's say all users. So all users is the object, this users. Now we are getting all of it. Okay, now if I use the bracket notation and say user, you see it gives me all the users, their value. And then if I say dot online, you see it gives me the value of the online keys. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to say if, so I'll use an if statement here. And I'll say if the user's online property is set to true, I want to increase this total users online by 1. So I'll say total users online plus equals 1. So what this means is that at the end of the day, I can return the total users online, what value we are getting here, to show us the number of users who are online. So I return total users online. And you see we get 1, which is what we have. So this is false, this is true. So Jeff is the only one online, so we have 1 user online. All right. All right, next up, let's see how we can generate an array of all objects, an array of all object keys with Object.keys. Okay, so finish writing the get array of users function so that it returns an array containing all the properties in the object it receives as an argument. So I'm just going to say Object.keys and then the name of the object. and then let's return it. Okay, as you can see, we are getting the object, and this object contains all the keys, so Alan, Jeff, Sarah, and Ryan. All right. Okay, so finally, let's see how we can modify an array stored in an object. Okay, so we can have an object that contains arrays. Okay, so for example, we have user. Here we have various keys, and then inside data we have another object, and inside the data we have this friends property here, and this friends property here contains an array. Okay, the value is an array, so we want to add to this array. Okay, so we are told that the user object contains 3 keys, data contains 5 keys, so data 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now inside the data we have a friends array, and want to modify this add friends function so that it takes a user object and adds the friend argument to it. So let's see. So first, let friends array. So let's get a friends array. So to get a friends array, you're going to say user dot data. Okay. So user dot data dot friends. Okay, now let's console.log the friends array to see what we are getting. Okay, as you can see, we are getting this. Now we want to add this new argument here, so we want to say, sorry, let's do user obj, because that's the argument we are getting. Okay, I want to say friends array dot push friend, the argument we are receiving. Okay, now as you can see, we are getting Sam, Kira, Tomo, and Pete. So Pete is the new friend that we are adding. So I can remove this console log, and now I can just go ahead and return the friends array like so. And as you can see, there we have it. So that's it. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a lot about basic data structures in JavaScript. The next video is going to be on basic algorithm scripting. Be sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.